Hizmet has been true to what they say they believe about people, what they say they believe about the relationship between people and God, what they say they believe about how we can live on this earth better together with other people. I had a chance to go with one of the Hizmet groups to Thailand and Cambodia. Experience to see how the Hizmet schools reach out to. Briefly, my name is Samuel Henry. I have been on the planet about 67 years. I'm very glad to be here. I've not had a chance to meet Mr. Gulen. I have read some of Mr. Gulen's work. I have seen some of the tapes of Mr. Gulen. I've been very positively impressed by both what he said and sometimes what he didn't say. In reference to the particular most recent crisis in Turkey, I've been very pleased with, again, what he said and what Mr. Gülen has not said. I think he's encouraged a lot of folks in the Hizmet movement to be calmer about certain approaches, and I think he's brought a level of thought, wisdom, and spirituality in ways that are just very, very significant and significant contributions. Sometimes it's easier to get caught up in the hysteria or the blame or the voices of people who like to see people at odds with each other, and he's refused to take the bait on that over the last year, and I saw that as a very positive sign. And as I read his work from time to time, I see that as being a hallmark of the ideas that he's brought forward. One of the pieces that we haven't always done, and I say we in terms of in my own society, is we haven't revered wise teachers in ways that we should. And to me, Mr. Gülen invites a comparison to both classical teachers who mentored, who taught, whose words were not only wise for a time, but they're wise for a span of times, for a lot of different moments together. So again, I haven't had the opportunity to meet Mr. Gülen, but everything I've heard is just incredibly positive. The times that I have been able to read what he said and people who have relayed back information from him, I find that both intellectually and stimulating as a human being. I love the interfaith work. Love the different centers that are dedicated to the interfaith work, the energy that Hizmet puts into it, the way that Hizmet keeps renewing its commitment. It's not just a static thing, but it's where there have been changes made, where it's gotten better, where there's just a continuous improvement in terms of what happens with the interfaith and intercultural dialogues. I see them as one of the most positive aspects of Hizmet. We don't have very many opportunities throughout the world. We don't have very many opportunities to participate with people that have a different faith than ours. And not to be too critical, but the media doesn't really help with that. They pull the stereotypic images. They don't go in any depth. They tend to just pick the catchphrases, and this doesn't help. And so what I find with Hizmet is this opportunity for people who come from very different pathways but biologically the same to sit with each other, to dialogue with each other, to have something to say that that needs saying, that maybe hasn't been heard before, but that always goes beyond the surface, digs into who we are and what our common humanity is. Most important aspects of Hizmet as compared to civil society movements, I think there are 3 points. The first is that many civil society movements, how does one say this nicely? You can't say it nicely. Lose their soul. They lose the sense of spirituality, and they become templates. And there's a nice thing about templates in that you can take them and move them around, but the worst thing about it is that when you presume that one community is the exact similar patterned, modeled after aspect of another community, you lose that piece of that sense of humanity. And one of the things I value about Hizmet is that that doesn't seem to happen. That yes, there are the important common pillars which it stands on, but that each community encounters it. It's a living thing made different in that community. It's a part of the lives and journeys of the people who are there. And to me, that's just a phenomenally important piece that many civil societies just do not have the opportunity or the heart to be able to do. So I find a lot of encouragement from the Hizmet with its education, with its spirituality, with its ability to connect people. And that's not something that happens in many of the civil society kinds of organizations. Want to get back to, though, is this piece where some people say it's too good to be true. And my own opinion, and I've been 60+ years on the earth, is that some things are as good as true. And when you see them true, you know they're good. And that's not to play with the words, it's to say that when you see how people are treated, when you look at the connection between what the philosophical idea and the central idea and what the doing turns out to be, you can see that as far as I've seen, Hizmet has been true to what they say they believe about people, what they say they believe about the relationship between people and God, what they say they believe about how we can live on this earth better together with other people. I've spent a lot of time and a lot of energy in some other spheres, mostly education, but also politics, trying to have the better of these relationships, and I appreciate both the leadership and the energy that goes into Hizmet trying to achieve an area of goodness and truth. I'm not talking about the old Greek ideas, you know, in terms of this abstract, but I'm talking about ways that you treat people where people become a reflection of yourself. And I know in the religious pieces of many religions, there's this real look to try to encounter the difference, but ourselves in that difference. And I've seen that in Hizmet. I don't think it's too good to be true. I think it's true, at least what I've seen. And I find it very, very both fascinating and gratifying. And I'm appreciative of the efforts that go into it. And I'm not looking to find a fault with it. Sure, we're all humans and we have faults. but I'm appreciative of what it brings to people who are struggling with hope and struggling with their own relationships with other people, and through Hizmet, finding some ways to have that happen better, whether it's through education or social services or other ways for that positive and good stuff. I've seen some fairly ugly underside pieces to what people can do and what happens when the goodness of us isn't allowed to be released and unleashed. And one of the things I've liked about Hizmet is that it strives to and channels ways to have that kind of goodness realized and unleashed. The presumptions about Hizmet, as far as I can tell, are not that we're going to come into a room and beat up on each other, but that we're going to sit down with each other and we're going to have some exchange, and we're going to have conversations, and we're going to come away from there with a deeper, better understanding. And so if somebody says that's too good to be true, I say, no, I've seen it happen. I've been a part of it happening. It's the kind of thing that I wish would happen a lot more, and I salute the Hizmet movement and their leadership for having made it available. I believe that we are all connected to each other and with each other, and one of the things I really enjoy about Hizmet is that opportunity to participate, not just in dialogue, but in actually doing things.
My own personal view of Hizmet is very positive. I think we need more organizations like Hizmet, not less. I think that the generosity, the charitable works are genuine. That is my feeling.